Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. I hope you had a great holiday weekend. Today I wanted to share with you my Pride Month book picks for all ages. If you don't know me, my name is Jessie. I previously worked respite for special needs kids in New York City. I was laid off in March of 2020 due to the pandemic, and this past academic school year, I have been assisting families with virtual learning and homeschooling for their children. As I said, today I want to share with you my book picks for Pride Month. I hope I have a little something for everyone. I think I do. So let's just get started, starting with the youngest to the oldest. So the first book that I have here is actually for babies, toddlers, and preschoolers, although it would also make a good early reader for early elementary aged children. This little board book is called Pride 123. And it is just the sweetest little book. This is by Michael Justine, and I can read to you just a couple of pages. It's a counting book. One parade in the month of June. Two DJs spin fabulous tunes. Three families of all different types. So I love how bright and colorful this book is. I, of course, love the diversity that is pictured here across the front, and that last page that we read, families of all different types, that really appeals to me. So this is my infant, toddler, preschool aged book pick. The next book in the same age range that I have for you is this sweet little board book called And Tango Makes Three. We just read in Pride 123 about all different kinds of families, and this is the true tale of one very unique penguin family. This story took place quite some years ago at the Central Park Zoo, and it is the story of two male penguins who fell in love and became partnered and went on to raise an orphaned egg that then hatched and produced a baby named Tango. It tells the very sweet story of the formation of this family. Again, beautiful illustrations. Penguins are my favorite animal, and I have spent many happy hours at the Penguin House at the Central Park Zoo. I bought this book at the gift shop at the Central Park Zoo, and I have never looked online to see if it's available anywhere else, but I will try to find a link for you, and as always, I will link as many of these books as I can find in the description box below. I love this sweet little book, and I hope that you will too. Then I have a few different picture books. Of course, I think that you can read picture books at just about any age. I sometimes still read books like this with the oldest child that I work with, who is 10 years old, and I sometimes read books like this with the youngest child that I currently work with, who is 15 months old. So I think picture books are definitely for all ages. I think if we were kind of using a typical scale, I would say that these are probably somewhere in the range of ages 3 to 8. So early elementary, I think, would kind of be the main target here. The first book that I have is this really sweet book called Jacob's New Dress. This follows the story of a little gender nonconforming child named Jacob who experiences some bullying at school, who also has to navigate some family acceptance issues, and finally becomes very comfortable in their own skin. This is just a really sweet book. I really love the themes that are here. I think it teaches really good lessons about how to deal with people that bully you or have negative things to say. It's a really sweet little story. The next book that I have here is not specifically a Pride book, but it's a book that I think is perfect for this month. This little book is called A Color of His Own, and it follows the sweet little chameleon on his quest to find who he is and the place where he belongs. I think this theme is so perfect and so on target for Pride Month. I think so often in the LGBTQ community, we hear people talk about how they didn't feel that they belonged. They searched for a long time to find the place in which they belonged, And this is just such a sweet little story with absolutely gorgeous illustrations. And I won't spoil the ending, but also a really sweet conclusion at the end. So I definitely recommend A Color of His Own. This book is just fun for me. I've had this book for a long time. This is A Day in the Life of Marlon Bundo, and this is actually a book that Late Week Tonight with John Oliver wrote. It's sort of a bit of a reply to another book that was written called A Day in the Life of the Vice President. Marlon Bundo is the former Vice President Mike Pence's pet rabbit. It really talks about voting and about the way that our political choices and who we vote for shape the kind of experience that we have in this country, the rights that we have. And it just follows the sweet little bunny, Marlon Bundo, and Wesley, the little boy bunny that he falls in love with. I love this book. I've read this book a couple of times on my other channel, and it's always one of my favorites year-round, but especially at this time of year. Another book that I have, and again, this is a picture book, but this is really starting to become sort of an informational text. The words are a little smaller. There are a few more words on the pages. And this book is called Pride, the Story of Harvey Milk and the Rainbow Pride Flag. And this is a great little book. It has, again, all of these picture books, of course, just the most beautiful illustrations. And I love, of course, the historical element to this book. Here is an illustration of the actual pride flag. So this is a great book. I have considered having my older one read this book and then write a little paragraph for me on what they learned. Moving now into what I would consider to be more upper elementary level books. Of course, we all know about the what was, who was, where is, who is, what is books. These are great historical nonfiction books, and this one is What Was Stonewall. Now, of course, being in New York City, this is the home of Stonewall, and this is just a great look at some of the things that happened around the time of the Revolution. Here is actually, I don't see a lot of actual photographs in these books. The other books that I have a lot of drawings, but not a lot of photographs like this. And this one actually has quite a lot of photographs, including this gorgeous black and white depiction of the AIDS quilt. So yeah, of course, I love this book. The little girl that I work with who was 10 just read a couple of Who Was books with me for a school project, and so this is right on target for that upper elementary age level. I have seen and would consider using Who Was books all the way through probably middle school if you're looking at it as a homeschool resource, and then requiring an assignment like a book report or a paper or a diorama to be created around the text. So this is my first pick for that upper elementary age. Another one is this great book. This is called Rainbow Revolutions, Power, Pride, and Protest in the Fight for Queer Rights. This is a fairly chunky book. It is made by Crocodile Books, and again, just absolutely gorgeous illustrations, lots of really amazing text. You can see, maybe be able to see here. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see or not because it's a dark page, but there are kind of long sections of very bulky text. Here is another example of that. And I believe this book was rated for ages 9 to 12 when I looked at it online. And I would certainly consider that to be the case. However, I would also consider it to be appropriate for anyone from kind of that age range on up, and I would probably consider also reading sections of this as a read aloud, just for kind of the timeline and the historical information. So the next couple of things that I have here are moving into high school and adult aged books. First, I have this set of books. I love these. These are amazing. I have A Queer History of the United States, which is by Michael Bronski. And this is kind of the original version, the adult version, and it follows kind of just all the way through from even before this country was formed, all the way through to the present day, and talks about history through a queer lens. It is an absolutely phenomenal book, and I was absolutely thrilled when they put out a queer history of the United States for young people. So this is a parallel text. As you can see, they're both quite chunky, very academic, but also very accessible. I love these books, and I wanted to, if I can find it again, I should have flagged it. I did mean to flag it. I want to read to you just a couple of lines from here. So this says, "This book is a series of biographical stories and historical sketches. They begin before there was a United States and move forward to the 21st century." And that is very accurate. This is American history, maybe in a way that you haven't previously thought about, maybe through a lens that you had not previously considered. This is an absolutely amazing book. I would absolutely assign this as high school reading. Again, I think sections of this could also be appropriate for middle school kids as a read aloud or as a read together, but I'm really pairing them as a mom or dad or caregiver read and a high school read. These are great books. I've actually started reading A Queer History of the United States for young people because I have already previously read the adult version, and it is beautiful. I made it about 3 pages in before I started to cry. Now, the last two things that I have are kind of a specific niche, and so I just want to say about that before. I have previously said on this channel that I was raised in a very conservative denomination. I was raised as a Southern Baptist. And in my life, before my time in seminary, during my time in seminary, and after my time in seminary, I had to do quite a lot of deconstruction and reconstruction. I know that I was taught that queer identity is antithetical to the gospel. And what I've learned, my belief about that has changed. It's just not true. And I think when you go to seminary, there are things that you learn about the history of the text and the history of our country that might change your mind for you. But I also know that not everyone wants to or can go to seminary. So I thought I would just kind of offer for anyone who was maybe still having an internal dialogue and debate around issues of acceptance and embracing of the LGBTQ plus community, I thought I would just recommend a couple of reads. I actually have most of this bookshelf is dedicated to sort of my queer theology library, and I'll insert a picture. So I have quite a few books that I can recommend. Feel free to ask for more recommendations if you would like to have them. It was really hard to whittle them down to 2, but I did. And so that's what these books are. So the first thing that I wanted to show you is this book called Walking the Bridgeless Canon and Repairing the Breach Between the Church and the LGBT Community. And it says here in the yellow bar, an examination of the historical, cultural, psychological, medical, social, and religious lenses through which LGBT people have been viewed, with solutions to resolve decades of distortion. This book is written by Kathy Baldock. I have the great privilege of knowing Kathy personally. I first met Kathy when I went to my first Pride event in my hometown, which was Charlotte, North Carolina. And that was really an act for me of resistance. There is a lot of protesting that happens at Pride, especially Southern Pride. There are a lot of people that come with signs and really hateful, horrible, not very Christian things written on them. And I had heard about this thing called the Wall of Love. And it was really born out of what happened at Matthew Shepard's funeral, where people picketed his funeral and people kind of lined the road with angel wings to block those signs and try to buffer that noise. That's kind of the idea of what we do at Charlotte Pride on a much lower scale. And that is pretty much one of the things that Kathy talks about in this book. So she talks about kind of just her own process of deliberative theology, how she also went from a very conservative background to kind of a different understanding, and how that has led her to do this kind of activist work. So at my first Pride, taking part in the Wall of Love, which is what we call it, kind of this buffer between people that are coming to enjoy Pride and people that are coming to protest Pride, just literally standing in the gap. That is where I met Kathy. Kathy was the one who was a part, who had pretty much organized and conceptualized the Wall of Love. And I see her every year at Pride. Obviously, last year Pride was canceled, and I think also this year it's going to be like fully virtual. So I miss seeing her in person, but this is an absolutely beautiful book. And it does come with a companion. This is a discussion guide for personal, group, and Bible study use. And so that really makes it perfect to use as an educational resource, whether you're doing it by yourself, with your child, or with a church group. So that's kind of my little blurb about Walking the Virtuous Canon. It's a beautiful book. And the other book, for anyone who is deconstructing or questioning, another book that I would really recommend is Unclobbered by Colby Martin. Again, it was very hard to whittle it down to 2. I have many more recommendations if you would like to have them, but this is Unclobbered by Colby Martin, and Colby takes a look at sort of the so-called clobber passages in the scripture, these kind of 7 sentences that we have somehow cherry-picked out of the Bible and elevated to be above all else, including Christ's command to love one another. They really drive a lot of the anti-LGBTQ sentiment and the homophobia and the hatred that is born out of the church. And so this book just takes each of those passages, breaks them down, does it in a very academic way. This could be for a high schooler, but this is actually an adult pick. I have read this book and I love this book. There are also videos on YouTube by this Colby Martin who wrote this book under the same name. And so you could totally make a unit out of this, have it be a book that you read and then also videos that you watch. There are some Q&As, I think, as well. And like I said, it just takes it all the way through in sort of this absolute academic way and just breaks down the exegesis of these passages, the historical significance, and looks at it in the original language. And, you may come away feeling differently. So these are all of my books for Pride Month, all of my book picks for Pride Month. And I hope that you have enjoyed. I really did try to make sure that I had a little something for everyone. And I hope that you have found this informative. While I have never previously disabled comments on a video, I am setting the comments on this video to approval. You are welcome to comment, and I will read every comment and I will reply to you. I will engage any question or any conversation. But for members of the LGBTQ community who might come to this video specifically to look for book picks, I do not want for them to have to read anything unkind in the comments, and I know that there is always the potential for that when you do a video like this. So I will be disabling comments, but I will also be reading every single comment. I will be setting them for approval. Please feel free to leave me a comment, to message me on Instagram, or to send me an email. I am always willing to answer questions and have conversations. Thank you so much for watching. Happy Pride!